Hi, this is Daniela, and welcome to Bestie Life, the podcast, where we help you stop burnout now. If you're tired of running on empty, juggling all the things, and wondering when your life is supposed to feel better, you're in the right place. This show is your go-to space for real talk and practical strategies to help you protect your energy, create balance, and actually enjoy the life you're working so hard for. You'll get a mix of solo episodes and honest conversations with guests. My goal is to help you feel less alone, more empowered, and way more in control of your time and energy and well-being. So let's get into it. Hi, this is Daniela with Bestie Life, the podcast. And today I am so excited for you to meet Anokhi Kapsi. She is the owner of Solve for Mom, as well as the host of the podcast, Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life. She is a life planning coach for high achieving moms, focused on helping them envision, plan, take action on their big ideas, and just make a difference at home and at work. And I think in general, we all could kind of use this guidance and insight to help start living our best life. So thank you so much, Anokhi, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, you've got a little bit of a different background as far as what brought you to being a coach. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's really true. If someone were to look at my, working history, it wouldn't really be obvious to them why I am now here, a life coach that works with high achieving moms. But my background is really in the science world. I trained as a laboratory-based biomedical researcher. And so I have all of the experimental and protocol training. And then after my PhD, I moved into the industry world, and I worked as a scientific consultant for many years. So over 15 years of experience that I had in just managing projects and critical thinking and problem solving. I found myself at a kind of later stage in life as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And once I became a mom, that's when things felt a little different for me, because while I was very put together at work in my professional life, I was finding that it was really difficult for me to find that right balance and stay organized and just find, direction
Mm-hmm.
as in
Yeah.
with my role as a mom, because I still wanted to do it all. And so the accomplishments and the identity attached, with the progress I had made in my career-oriented life was not really translating over to my personal life. As a life coach, I've been able to take a lot of the things that I've learned, because at its core, a lot of the skill set that I had that made me successful at work, I was able to apply over to my personal life. Essentially, that is kind of the connection, the bridge
Yeah.
to why I'm here now.
Yeah. And I love what you said, because I definitely felt like I experienced that as well. That's part of what led to my burnout. Like at work, I scheduled things, I had them organized, it was on my calendar. And you come home and it's like things we just kind of took for granted when it came to just organizing a lot of these things at home in that same format. I know when I talk to people, a lot of time they never think to put self-care and time for themselves on their calendar, just like any other appointment, which is a lot of times why it doesn't happen. And so what were some of those first steps? If someone's listening right now and they, just like both of us, can hear themselves in this story, can hear just being torn between, high achieving at work and really kind of struggling to kind of keep it together and pull it together at home. What would be some of those first steps that they could look at to start to change, make that change?
I think the biggest one is that when you go through major life transitions, changes, like motherhood is, but becoming a parent in general. So it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, there are other life transitions as well that this would apply to. But I'll come from the perspective of my experience, which was when I became a parent.
Mm-hmm.
You have to realize that your idea of success and your goals will have changed at that point, whether you realize it or not, because you are taking on a new role, you're in a new environment, whatever that life transition encompasses. There's a lot of, the 360-degree view that you now have of your inner self, your outer self, and your goals have all really changed. And
Hmm.
sometimes it takes a while for you to realize that. And as a high achieving person who's very goal oriented, and many of us, and I'm sure your audience, you know, works really well in their professional environment, well, the reason that you succeed so well in your work setting, at least on the professional end, is because you have a clear goal. You know the purpose, you know the project deadline, you know the company's mission, etc. But we don't always do that for our own lives. And so when you have a life transition, there's often a little bit of recalibration that has to happen. So I like to say the first step is really going back and actually understanding and defining these core ideas in terms of success. So what is your purpose? What drives you to do what you're doing?
Hmm.
Even at a personal level, like in your home, like what makes you feel like you have a successful family? What do you need to do to feel, uh, you know, personally driven? Um, and so defining those success, though, your actual goals and also the metrics that you would need to assess whether you're achieving those goals or not, I would say is a very good first step. And to do that, I like to use what's called a time, I call the timeline framework, which is very easy.
Hmm.
I come from the epidemiology side of the world in my scientific consulting. And so, we often do studies that are like retrospective as well as prospective and cross-sectional, which are, present, a snapshot in time. So I translated that over to our own personal lives, where what you can do is you can start asking yourself a series of questions by looking into your past. Things like what brought you joy as a child?
Hmm.
What were interests that you really, lost track of time when you were doing, but you've sort of let slide now. You haven't really thought about those things. So that's your past. And there's a lot of questions you can ask about what you do now. What are your strengths? What are challenges you've overcome and things like that? What do you enjoy doing right now? And then also looking into the future and start planning out your vision and things that you want to work towards. To
Right.
take the time, and this doesn't have to take a lot of time. It's just really giving yourself a series of questions and giving yourself the time to reflect. And the mode by which you can do this is also, variable. You could just have conversations with friends and family. You could open up a journal and sit and even journaling for 5 minutes a day. You can do some mindfulness practices or meditation and then ask yourself one or two of these questions, and the clarity by which you can answer these questions will be enhanced after that. You can think about them while you go for a walk. So it's really not that difficult to do, but
Hmm.
so essential to have that level of clarity. And that I think is really important as a first step, to have that defined, to be clear on that,
Hmm.
because then that will define how you spend your time and your energy and all of these things, these major decisions that you make afterwards. And that's why it's an important first step.
Right. No, I love that clarity in your value, your goals. As you were talking, I was thinking almost like even like a job description. Like at work, we're given a title, we're given a job description. We know exactly what's expected of us, what we would ask, say, our secretary to do, what our colleagues would work with us on. And yet I think at home, and I don't know if you felt this way or I've heard people feel this way, as soon as it became mom, I felt like everything was mine. Every
Yes.
single job was mine, and the expectation and that job description
Mhm.
is so like all encompassing. There
Compass.
is no
Mhm.
set kind of like this is it. And I think that's where a lot of that struggle could possibly be coming from.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, it goes beyond that. Especially, I'll give you the perspective from me as a mom, because I can't really speak for fathers, but I suspect that this is the same situation for fathers. But we believe that we have to sacrifice ourselves,
Yes.
our, our health, our sanity, our time, our dreams and ambitions and
Yeah.
even who we are
Yeah.
as,
Even the meal off your plate some nights if your kid wanted it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, the number of times I needed to use the restroom and I just had to keep putting it off, keep putting it off
Hmm.
to help my kids, just basic things even, right? We feel like that is part of the job, quote unquote, if you call parenting a job, which I don't
Yeah.
always really like to do, but if you were to
It's like a
see it
passion
that way,
project. It's a passion
yeah,
project.
exactly, exactly. And so I just would like to have people reconsider that you don't have to sacrifice yourself in
Hmm.
order to be, this amazing mom or dad. Uh, and you don't have to choose. It kind of irks me because it's become very trendy to say that work-life balance is a myth, that you can never achieve work-life balance. And I actually come from a school of thought where, well, I think that's actually a very dangerous thought because if you say that, especially to moms, women are going to feel like they have to choose one or the other. So
Right.
you see more and more women opting out of motherhood and just choosing career because they're like, oh, I can't have both.
Hmm.
And that makes me a little sad because uh, I do believe that having a family is such a fulfilling part of my life to be a mom. So to voluntarily opt out of that because you think you can't have it, that it's not possible to have the other things you want makes me sad. And on the flip side, it's the same thing when you become a parent and then thinking that you have to, you know, stop being as ambitious, stop developing
Hmm.
yourself professionally, give up the next role or whatever it is that your goals are in your career. That also I find very sad. And so that is why I think it's really dangerous to start going around saying that you can't have balance. Now, I
Yeah.
understand where probably people are coming from, and maybe I'm being a little facetious, but really, I understand that it's something that you have to constantly work on and keep in check. Just like you have a marriage, you can be married, and that's
Hmm.
one and done to be married, maybe, but you always have to work on your marriage, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the same thing with work-life balance. And so for you to, for us to believe that we have to sacrifice it all, I think is just not correct. But that is sometimes how society portrays the role.
Hmm.
And, the TikTok memes and all these things, So,
Yeah, I like to redefine the word balance as well, because I think people are too literal with it when it comes to, oh, everything's got to be equal. And I look at balance as how you adapt, pivot, have resilience and boundaries, and it might look different on a day-to-day basis. Some days might be super work heavy, some days might be super home heavy, life heavy, and things like that, but finding a way that they work together for you is how you find that balance as well, and those four components definitely help with that. So I love that, we're aligned at that it's not about giving up one for the other. It's about, doing them, but not necessarily both always at the exact same time.
exactly, exactly. So, Solve for Mom is an online life coaching business that I have where I work specifically with high achieving moms who are trying to seek that balance where,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to necessarily be professionally, but they have some, like you said, big ideas, some dream. They want to make an impact in some way. And it doesn't have to be world changing, but it's important to them, right? And they don't want to yet sacrifice motherhood. That is our priority still, one of our most important roles. And so, what I talk about in my business and also through my podcast, which you mentioned, uh, is really using this tool set called life planning.
Mm-hmm.
And life planning at its core is to help you kind of find that balance that
Right.
we've been talking about. And, I can go into the nitty gritty of it, but essentially, what I see, I loved your definition of balance, that I think those steps are really great. And you were actually on my show
Mm-hmm.
recently and you did talk about that in a little bit detail. So I know a little bit about that, and I really enjoyed hearing that version of it. And I think it is very complementary to what I'm also trying to do.
Yeah.
And so with life planning, it I know sometimes it's a little confusing. It sounds like we're trying to get, what part of your life am I trying to really plan out and organize? But really, I'm talking literally about your life, as if you were to map out your life from now all the way to the end of your life,
Yeah.
and really envisioning what you want way down the road, and then building from the top all the way down to to your intermediate goals. Everything is rooted in your values, understanding your purpose, your mission. Your mission includes your purpose and all of your passions, your strengths, your skills, things like that. Having all of that really articulated and laid out will then define your day-to-day schedule. So your time, your energy, your resources, like finances, your relationships, who you're going to spend time with, who not, right?
Yeah.
Everything, all of those decisions that you have to make on a day to day. Should I sign up for this activity or not? Should I, take that new job offer or not? Should we, cook meals from scratch at home or not? All of those nitty gritty decisions that you have to make will be dictated by all of those top heavy things that we just discussed. And so that is having it all road mapped out, having a clear plan, and you will never be confused from there on out. Any decision you make, you can filter through this life plan, and it'll be so clear to you
Yeah. I
what you
love
should
that.
spend your time in doing and not. And that to me, it's kind of like a time alignment. And that to me, or a filter, is a balance.
Yeah. No, I was thinking too, as you're talking, I'm thinking like of a touchstone. Like that's the kind of the grounding piece for everything else that, swirls around kind of thing. Like that's that one focus that you always align with that makes everything else kind of work. So I love how, it's not about making every single decision going forward. It's about kind of the barometer to make the rest of those decisions.
Exactly. Well
Yeah,
said.
that's
Yes.
such a great framework. No, I love that. So, how does that, in your day to day life, is there certain ways that you kind of practice it on a regular basis so that it looks like for you?
Yeah. So essentially, it's it does require a lot of self-discovery. And I explained a little bit about, how some components of the self-discovery, like the timeline framework. Once you go through that self-discovery step, you then build out the life plan so that, you work through each element of the life plan. And, I bring my clients through that stepwise. Once you have the life plan, which is, I think, what you're now asking me is how do you use it in your day to day? What I like to do is when I'm setting my schedule, and that frequency will probably be different from person to person. Uh, Essentially, the first time I'm sort of getting myself organized, let's say totally new work year, school year, whatever, I kind of run a little bit of a time audit.
Hmm.
So, so these are kind of one-time things that you might have to do. And when you run the audit, that is where you can use things like the focus funnel, which I don't know if you've heard of before, but it's where you decide, for example, if you're trying to set up time blocks or set up your schedule and you're trying to look and see, is this important for me to spend my time on, right? You compare it against your life plan, and you decide, is this something that actually brings me towards my vision? Am I, is it in line with my values? If it's not a priority, it's not part of your values, and doesn't appear anywhere in your life plan, you can eliminate it. And it's amazing just doing that one first step of the filter,
Hmm.
how many things you'll realize you spend time doing you had no business doing. Like you're trying to shoot for a goal that's not even a goal that furthers, the life that your
Yeah.
ideal life, right? We often are chasing goals that are set by society or we think are really noble, important goals. maybe something like running a marathon, which sounds great. That's awesome. It's also healthy for you and all these things. But maybe when you sit down and take the time to do a life plan, and then you go back and check, well, what's really drives me is to have a sense of releasing my emotions and getting a little bit of an endorphin rush. I don't need to necessarily train for a marathon. My goals will be achieved by just finding 30 minutes a day to work out, right? Or something
Yeah.
like that. So that is what I'm trying to say. And so you can eliminate a lot of things. And by eliminating it, you are now opening up a lot more time. What are you going to do with that time? You're going to now put it towards the things that are your priorities, the things that mean the most to you, the things that make you happy, the things that bring you freedom. That is how you restructure your schedule. The focus funnel also includes things like, what can you delegate? If it's something you have to do, what can you delegate? What can you automate
Hmm.
so that it doesn't require you to be present every second of that task? And what can you execute? What has to be executed by you? By defining that, delineating those things, eliminate, delegate, automate, and execute, you then really line up how much hands-on time you have on certain things and frees up your time in other ways, and it reprioritizes your time to the things that mean the most to you. So that is also probably the next step after you create your life plan. But then after that, it's really, let's say on a weekly basis, you work on your schedule. What you have to get done at home or at work or whatever. Then really it's just kind of checking through your life plan and cross-checking and saying, is this task important? Is this,
Right.
and kind of checklisting it away. That self-awareness really is, you won't even have to physically have it in front of you after a while. You just are
Hmm.
so clear. It's going to be obvious to you. Wait, why am I driving my kid to 5 different activities
Yeah.
on a one day? What
Right.
what is the purpose of that? That's not in line with my purpose or my family's purpose. So, you know, you'll start making sense of your schedule and it really gets cleaned up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great way to kind of like see what really needs to be a part of all that, because that's where I think we get into trouble, is having too many things. And I know you talk a lot about, those things that really matter. That's the whole point of all this, right? Is to really be able to live the life and focus on the things that really matter. And so as
Mhm.
part of that, I always love to talk about gratitude as like an
Mhm.
underutilized form of self-care and things like that. And so I would love to kind of hear, what would you say are the top 2 to 3 things you're the most grateful for?
That's a great question. Okay, so let's see. I definitely am grateful for my family for one.
Hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of people say that, but I truly, I truly, truly mean that. I don't know if it's kind of out of fashion now to talk about this, but if we rewind back a couple years, 2020,
Hmm.
life was really different for a couple months at
Yeah.
least. I couldn't imagine being locked down with, any other 3 people
Yeah.
than my husband and my kids. They are my absolute favorite people in the whole world. And so I think, it feels to me like God handpicked these people to be in my life. And so I probably can show my appreciation a little more. So I'm glad you asked me that question because I feel like after this call, I want to share my gratitude with them. But they are that I would say my family as my top one. After that, I'm really grateful for all the opportunities I had in terms of education. And
Hmm.
education for me, learning, I'm a lifelong learner. That's what I consider myself. And I think it's part of why I am so driven and what makes me ambitious is that I'm not satiated. I always want to learn more. I want to know how to be better. That self-improvement bug is just in me. And I've been fortunate enough. I've spent many, many years past what is the average in school. So I've had formal education, but I also have had education in so many other formats. And that's really important for you to know that you can learn in other formats as a
Yeah.
mom, because a lot of us moms, we think learning and education has to happen in a classroom with PowerPoints and a course book.
Hmm.
But that is more often than not these days for me. learning happens while doing other things, listening to a podcast while I'm pushing a
Yep.
stroller, things like that, talking to the elderly neighbor down the street who has life experience to share and teach, that I could never read about in any textbook,
Hmm.
uh, just talking to people, helping others is a form of education because you get more experience and you learn about so many different things, like how to be better at what you're trying to do, how to work with others. Um, I've learned very much that I can understand something and be good at something, but having to teach it is a whole other ball game.
Yeah.
And I'm not really great at that. And I'm trying to build that skill, but obviously, I've worked a lot of kinks out because I'm able to coach clients now. So that I think is probably the second thing. And I'm not really sure I think the third thing is my health.
Yeah.
I think having a high quality of life goes hand in hand with trying to achieve, like trying to have an ambitious life, trying to be ambitious. So, and learn and all these things that I just talked about, like being able to care for my family. I can't care for them unless I'm healthy and care for
Right.
myself, which I'm sure you must know all about because it's really, such a huge component of self-care. So I would say that those three things. And yeah, sorry if I talked a little longer maybe on
Oh.
that than you needed an answer
No, you're
for, but
totally good. No, I love all of that. And so how can people find you, Anokhi? How can they work with you?
absolutely. So my website is solveformom.com,
Mhm.
and you'll find all kinds of links on there to contact me, but you can also write to me at hello@solveformom.com. I answer every email. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just there, the company page is Solve for Mom, but you can just tag at Solve for Mom. I also have my own personal professional presence on LinkedIn, and that's just my name. So at Anokhi Kapsi Sullivan. And I will share this information with you written down if you want. Then my podcast is on pretty much every player, including an audio version on YouTube. It's Achieve Your Ambitious Mom Life.
No, and all those links will definitely be live in the show notes. So you'll be able to just scroll down, access it, definitely ask her a question. She's got some great insights, great information, and hopefully will help you find some of that balance, some of that work-life harmony that you're looking for. So thank you so much, Anokhi, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on, Daniela.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you got something out of this episode that really made you feel seen, supported, or just a little bit more grounded. If you have any questions or thoughts, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're up for it, please leave me a 5-star review. That will help more people find the show and join this community. I'll leave you with 2 of my favorite quotes. Alone we may be strong, but together we're stronger. And when we support each other, incredible things happen. So let's keep showing up for ourselves and each other, and maybe even have some fun while we're at it. I'll talk to you soon.